Chag Sameach. I recently officiated a funeral for someone who had grown up Orthodox, very serious upbringing, 4 days a week of religious school. His mother came from a Hasidic family. After Bar Mitzvah, he was called to lead Mincha Mariv, but somehow he lost touch with his Judaism. It just kind of fell into the background. It's not that he had some moment where he decided, I don't want to be as Jewish, but it just happened. Life happened, and many of the friends he happened to meet were not Jewish. And he retained his beliefs in many of the things he grew up with, but he didn't practice much Judaism or have much connection with the Jewish community. And he led a really good life. He did good things. His job was a job of serving people. His morals were wonderful. Everybody spoke so highly of him. And I got this call from him just a few weeks before he passed away. I got a call from him, and he just said to me, I need to go into the ground the way I came into this world as a Jew. And he had this powerful yearning, he wanted to go back to where he came from. And he spoke about those early days of his with this profound nostalgia. I remember being with the women in the women's section of the synagogue and looking on to what was happening. And it was just so important to him, was what he wanted. And when he wanted me to know his Hebrew name so I could eventually arrange for it on the headstone. And I could just see him digging in his mind for his father's Hebrew name and his full Hebrew name. It just was so important to him. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, says that we all yearn to return to our source. That everything in this universe is always trying to go back to its source. As water that evaporates, becomes rain, and then goes back into the ocean. You throw up a ball, it comes back down. As leaves that turn up towards the sun, all of life is returning. And so, us human beings too, we seek to come back. And there's times when this force is more powerful and more potent than others. Of course, when the door opens to the other world for ourselves, but also for other people, our loved ones, for the people we love. Think of my friend who passed away last year after his battle of cancer. And I remember when I went to visit him 2 weeks before he passed, and I made him a Shabbat meal, and I made him falafel and hummus and stuff I know how to make. And he grew up he was a son of a French soldier in the French army, and he was posted to Saudi Arabia. So he was born in Saudi Arabia. He just had this moment where he took in the smell of the falafel, and he said, this reminds me of my childhood, of the dunes and the smells of the Middle East, of his earliest years, back to all of that. And so when our loved ones go back, it awakens in us thoughts about our own source, about who we are, and about that force that also keeps pulling us. None of us really know how long that string is that we all have, but we know that eventually it will tug and draw us to that other mysterious side. So it reminds us to look around and think about that string and to think about our time that we have here. And then there are also moments like Pesach when we think about that string and it's pulling in a slightly different way, because it's also pulling us back to our source, right? Because Pesach is the origin story of our Jewish collective consciousness and civilization and being. It's where we come from, how we were formed as a people, the values that guide us, when our being was like a baby in its infancy and taking in its most powerful influences. So we feel in our kishkas, this is what it means to be Jewish, how we want to manifest it. These are the places in our lives where that current carries us to do good work in the world. And it's also because we have these visceral memories of Pesach, for those of us who grew up with it, singing the 4 questions, the horseradish going up our noses, the sweet charoset mixed with all of it, the voices of our parents and grandparents chanting Hebrew. It's our spiritual address to the infinite. And so as the holiday progresses, as mentioned before, from leaving Egypt in the particular story of our roots of our people, it eventually progresses to become even more universal and expansive and broad, until in the last day, the 8th day of Passover, it's all about Mashiach, all about what we just read, the Haftarah of a lamb lying with the wolf, the endless light and knowledge, devotion of the divine realm, the leopard with the goat, the calf, the lion together, a world of peace and truth, filled with the knowledge of God as the waters cover the sea. Because also on some level, our true source, whatever that source is, wherever it is, most of us see it as being a place with no boundaries, just wide open, love, unity, all issues melting away. So our days in this world are perhaps about laboring as much as we can to bring it here into our own world and lives, to thread some of that back into our existence right here in this world. Our days here are a journey and where we forget that this is what it's all about, but we have flashes. The Baal Shem Tov compares it to a child who suddenly comes into its playroom and suddenly absorbed in its play with toys and gets completely absorbed, busy with all the games and forgets its parent. When suddenly it sees its parent coming towards it because they love their parent, they suddenly forget about all their toys and suddenly they cast it all aside and they run towards their parent with all joy because all their preoccupations are suddenly cast off. All they want to do is feel the love of the parent. And in return, the parent is overjoyed to see their child run toward them, and the parent is radiating with love and majesty and joy. So we all seek to return to our source. As the water that evaporates and becomes rain and goes back into the ocean, as the leaves that turn and open up to the sun, as a magnet pulling back with the force of infinite love. There are times when we have a choice. Do we look or not look? And others when it simply pulls us and carries us off from all of our busyness into its wide embrace. Chag Sameach.